All right. So I'm trying something out tonight. I've been thinking about doing a little bit of a football chat for a while, and I'm going to wait for maybe another person or two. Might only be one or two people. Who knows? I did not plan this. There's no email blasts. There's none of that usual stuff that I tend to do. So I'm just seating my pants right now. Gonna make some stuff happen. All right. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while. It's called Off the Clock. And Off the Clock has a lot of meanings. It has to do with football, has to do with not working this very moment. And there's a lot to talk about, especially with respect to college football, the NFL, pretty much everything in all of those universes. So I'm going to get rolling. I'm sure people will hop on, hop off as it happens, but that's totally fine. And off we go. As you come in, definitely check out the comments, and type something in if you want, and I'll probably put it on the air. Definitely not picky. So the first story that I'm going to be talking about is Jim Harbaugh staying at Michigan. So I am super pumped about this for a lot of reasons, but most importantly, we have to go back to the very beginning of when all this started. Harbaugh had just come off of a tumultuous experience with the 49ers, right? He literally had he didn't know what was going to happen next, but he thought probably another NFL job. Had a lot of friction with Trent Baalke, who we'll talk about more in a little bit, because he's actually going to show up later in this story, in this video. But the reality is, Michigan is Harbaugh's alma mater, and we were lucky to get him in 2015. That's the bottom line. There was talk about Les Miles. There was talk about lots of folks. Harbaugh was the top of the top. He was somebody that we thought maybe we could get. He was somebody who we wanted badly. He was the quarterback in the 80s. And we got him. And he goes immediately from a situation where Brady Hoke and Dave Brandon had torpedoed the program, absolutely torpedoed the program. And he comes in day one gets the Nike and Jordan deal. 10-win season, butts in seats. Nobody expected him to go 10-3 his first year with a bowl win. Nobody. And he did it. Year 2, not so great. We had a little bit of a dip, right? Seemed like some stuff was happening. There was always an undercurrent of NFL rumors. But this year, after he goes 12-2, goes to the college football playoff, that's where it is, right? So he goes there, and then look what happened. NFL job, Vikings, Bears, etc., wanted to at least talk to him. And he finally indicated for the first time that he was open. He indicated for the first time, really, that, hey, listen, I was one play away from getting to a Super Bowl. And I want to go back. And who can really blame him for that? But luckily, after yesterday, we all thought probably he was going to the Minnesota Vikings. We all pretty much thought that he was going. And then last night, Adam Schefter, Michigan man himself, reported the news that Jim Harbaugh is staying at Michigan in 2022. And I don't care if you're a huge Harbaugh fan. I don't care if you're a partial Harbaugh fan. I don't care if you're a naysayer. Who are we going to get this late in the game? Maybe Matt Rule. Maybe Matt Campbell. Maybe we promote Gaddis. Maybe we promote Mike Hart. But there was always uncertainty about that, right? We were kind of thrown for a loop. But to his credit, unlike some others, Riley and Brian Kelly, he did give recruits the benefit of knowing what was happening. He gave recruits the benefit of knowing that he was going to consider NFL jobs. And in fact, he was. And he did. And for whatever reason, fell through. What happened? We may never know. I could speculate that he may not have gotten the control that he was interested in. They may have wanted him to keep Kirk Cousins, who we all know has a big contract talks. He has big contract talks going on. Productivity, not as good as some others. He is no Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, that is for sure. He is no Lamar. He doesn't have that ability. So could Harbaugh have been hamstrung with that? Whereas at Michigan, he is the guy. He is the alma mater. He is the prodigal son, right, of Michigan. And I think that was compelling enough for him to say, okay, I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to stay at Michigan. We'll see what the deal looks like. I am hoping that NIL is part of it, because he said himself he doesn't care about the money. His family cares about the money, but he doesn't care about the money. So possibly that's something. But at the end of the day, NIL is so huge, right? Because now Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M especially, they are going all in on this situation and just pouring oil money and other types of money at these players to get them to come to their school. We need a president of NIL. We need somebody who is going to be the George Washington of saying, here are all the opportunities for all of our students. Here's what the offensive line could be considered for. And actually going out to Coca-Cola and going out to Nike and going out to some of these major companies, and then some of the maybe not so major companies. Let's look at I mean, Meyer. Let's look at Michigan local businesses. Let's look at Zingerman's. Pizza House has had a long-standing relationship. I mean, all of those are possible NIL situations. So I'm hoping that alongside the 8 or 9 or 10 million a year and the 8-year deal that he's going to get, that he also has somebody who's going to help him with NIL. More, the Block M has been a continuing source of debate. Maybe the Block M is up for discussion. That would be such a game changer for so many of these students who are finally realizing, oh my God, I can make some money playing college football now. And not just the $1 million people, not just the Bryce Youngs of the world, but people who may have been overlooked. Now an NIL captain could really help out with that. So welcome back, Jim Harbaugh. Those who stay will be champions. And that is for sure what the sentiment is there. Okay, Brian Flores. So, the news came out that yesterday Brian Flores was going to have a lawsuit and is suing the NFL. He's suing multiple teams, including the Giants. Obviously the Dolphins. Some really damning stuff came out. And listen, the bottom line with all of it, if you haven't looked at it, I recommend you actually check out it's about 54 pages. It's a PDF. It actually is an easier read than you'd think for a legal document, but read it for yourself. Some of the key things here we have a society where there is racism. There's no doubt about it. I'm hoping that this can bring some people to the table. I'm hoping. But if what's true about Stephen Ross, if that is true, that he tried to get Brian Flores to pay him $100,000 per loss, if that is true, first of all, he still won games. His final 8, he won his final 8 games. In a situation where the owner was pressuring him to lose and pressuring him in so many different ways, according to the report. Again, Stephen Ross's people have come out to refute a lot of it, say it's categorically false. We're going to find, I'm sure more is going to be coming out. And I'm very pumped and very just intrigued to see what is next here. Because at the end of the day, this is going to come down to the sponsorship. This is going to come down to the advertisers, right? When Washington finally made the change to the Washington football team, it was because FedEx stood up and said, you need to change the name of the team. It's when the top sponsors said, you need to change X, Y, and Z, or we're pulling out of our title sponsorship, or we'll pull out of X, Y, and Z. If that starts to happen in greater numbers now, and some of these title sponsors and some of these other people who are spending hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars to basically keep these teams going, if they threaten to pull out, I think we're going to start to see some movement here. There's no doubt about that. So there's a lot to come on this. There's a lot that's developing. Definitely stay tuned. And speaking of dysfunction, how about the Jacksonville Jaguars? So according to USA Today, the Jaguars wire, and this is a rumor. I'm not saying it's true yet, but there has clearly been dysfunction in the Jaguars. If this is a thing, Shad Khan, for those of you who don't know, is the owner of the Jaguars. Trent Baalke is the general manager. Apparently, he asked potential head coach candidates about What do you think of Trent Baalke? What do you think of the GM? Now, who knows? We're going to see more on this, but I feel like there's a kernel of truth. And the reason I feel like there's a kernel of truth here is because of how the Urban Meyer situation was handled, how some of these different situations in the last couple of years with the Jaguars have been handled. Even if this is categorically false, which it could be, we know what happened with Urban Meyer. We know the handling of that was poor at best. And I think that's being extremely charitable to say it was handled poorly. So what happens? We will see. I personally think that a lot of the candidates who were interviewed for the Jags head coaching role probably said they wanted to get rid of Trent Baalke either publicly in an interview or at least privately. He has a reputation of being difficult to work with, as we talked about earlier with Jim Harbaugh. They butted heads often, and Jim Harbaugh obviously was fired, even though he went to a Super Bowl and was one play away from winning a Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. Let's not forget about that. But clearly this organization is in need of some serious TLC. It's in need of sitting down, rethinking what's going on, and let's see what happens from there. But I have a lot of friends who are Jags fans. I hope that we can kind of rise. You guys can rise from this and move on. What's next for Tom Brady? As we all know, finally it was confirmed that Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. is retiring from the sport of football after 22 years. 22 years of domination in New England and in Tampa Bay. I won't bore you with 5 million years of talking about Brady's history, but the Cliff Notes version is he is drafted in the 6th round, I think, or 7th round of the draft from the Michigan Wolverines in 2000. He was a backup a lot of the time at Michigan. He was a backup when he started for Drew Bledsoe in the New England Patriots. Bledsoe goes down with an injury. Brady comes in. It's a little bit shaky in the beginning of the first game, but then he starts to come into a rhythm. They go ahead, in his first full year of starting, they go ahead and win a Super Bowl, his first full year. And then they win another one and another one. And then 19, 20 years later, there's clearly some dysfunction going on there. While Brady and Belichick, I think, respect each other, there was definitely not a lot of love there. Let's put it that way. So he wanted to prove that he is the GOAT, that he can do it without Belichick. The Patriot way was not working for him. Now, he's actually relatively humble for all of the success that he's had. So he wasn't looking for, people to bow down and praise him. He was just looking for a little bit of respect. When Belichick gave him that game ball towards the end of his tenure, and he was elated, he was so happy to get it, I think that spoke volumes at how Belichick treats everybody in the organization, including the greatest quarterback of all time. No one is safe from the coaching of Belichick. Nobody. Tom gets called out in the film room. Everybody gets called out in the film room. But then it's also equal, right? Hey, if Tom Brady's getting called out, then me as a rookie, hey, no problem. So there are some ups and downs with it. But then he goes to kind of a weird fit, a place called the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I thought it was interesting that decision was made. My guess is that they told him, you're going to get full control, or at least not full control, but you're going to be essentially co-GM. Bruce Arians, I think, was very willing, although he does have an ego. Over time, I think he became more willing to just let Brady have what he wanted. Brady said, I want Rob Gronkowski. And they said, okay. Brady said, I want Antonio Brown. That one was a little bit more difficult, but they eventually said, okay. Brady said, I want Leonard Fournette. And they said, okay. So what we saw was Tom Brady actually going out and recruiting like a GM, like a leader of the team beyond just a player, actually recruiting people to come to Tampa Bay, as it became called, because we're going to go ahead and win a Super Bowl for Tampa Bay, and we're going to show the Patriots and we're going to show Bill Belichick exactly what we're made of. And a lot of people called Tampa Bay essentially the Tampa Bay Patriots because it started to look like the Patriots. It started to look like the Patriots more in mentality. People were more energized, but also more disciplined, more focused. Bruce Arians reportedly has a very freewheeling style versus Bill Belichick. So when people came to Tampa Bay, including Tom himself, it was looser. The weather is nicer. Things kind of popped into place. Did I think he was going to win a Super Bowl year one? Yes, I did. And I called it that he would win number 7 year one. Once I saw the team that he had put together alongside Arians, alongside the ownership, they put something together that I thought, oh my God, this could easily be a Super Bowl team. And he goes through the playoffs, has the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, who won the Super Bowl the year before, goes ahead and not only outduels Patrick Mahomes, but actually the defense of Tampa Bay crushes Patrick Mahomes. Crushes. That defense was one of the best I have ever seen. And when you combine that with the pass to Antonio Brown and the passes to Gronk, and you could see the play calling was resembling Josh McDaniels' play calling a little bit. It was resembling the Patriot way just a little bit. And I thought that was really telling. It was really telling that was happening, right? So what's next? He goes this year. They go to the playoffs again. But his talent level is a bit depleted. Godwin is out. AB had the AB situation. And it turned out that he, that was it. So, they dropped to a very, very, very good Rams team. That Rams team is now headed to the Super Bowl. And we'll see what happens from there. But he announced the other day he is retiring. He has a lot of different brands attached to him. Most recently, the new Brady apparel brand, including the Brady pants. There is now a Brady pants advertisement going around all over social media. And we'll see what happens with that. His family definitely played a role. There's no question. It's an open secret that Gisele has wanted Tom to retire for years. Gisele herself retired, formally retired anyway, from the modeling industry. And Tom kept playing because he said, I could win one more. And I think he won Gisele over enough with the Tampa Bay situation because Tampa is warmer. It's nice. It's, there's a lot more, opportunities than in freezing cold New England. Right. So really do think that he is going to continue to be a CEO type, continue to run his brands, just like Giselle. I think Giselle had a lot of input in the apparel brand that he's starting, and he's going to have some time with his family, and then we'll see what the next step is. I think that there is a small possibility that either he coaches or he may come back for one more year. And a lot of people saying no. Now that he's saying he's done, he's done. But he has an itch, and he's still playing at the top level. He is still playing at an elite level at 44 years old. That must have been incredibly difficult for him to say, okay, I'm going to listen to Giselle. I'm going to listen to the family. I'm going to focus on my brands. I'm going to focus on my golf. I'm going to focus on my family. It's an honorable thing to do. There's no question about that. It is an honorable thing to do. But at the end of the day, I think he may want to play again. And if he doesn't play again, that competitive spirit may lend itself to a coaching opportunity. Michigan, I'm sure, would be more than happy to welcome Tom Brady in an advisory capacity. And hear me out on this, because this is where I start to go off the rails and people are like, what? Hear me out. You can now, in college, hire advisors. Okay. Advisors mean a lot of things. Jim Harbaugh can call up Tom Brady and offer him an advisory role. I'm not saying Tom Brady's going to be a head coach in Michigan or a quarterbacks coach in Michigan, but I think that there's a decent chance that in the future, in the near future, especially since Harbaugh's probably going to be sticking around now for a couple of years, that he calls up Tom Brady. You know, that famous video of them playing catch together a few years ago. There is the possibility that he takes an advisory position, I do think, at the Michigan Wolverines football team. Can you imagine being a quarterback at the University of Michigan and being taught by the greatest quarterback in the history of football? I think that for any QB, obviously Cade McNamara was thrilled to be part of the Brady apparel situation. Possibly, you know, that's another connection that is happening. So who knows? But at the end of the day, we will see what happens. We're all going to be watching, I'm sure. And finally, and again, 30, I'm going to try to keep this to a tight 30. Washington yesterday revealed its new name. As I said earlier in the show, Washington was under immense pressure to change its name from FedEx, who has a license on as the title sponsorship of the FedEx Field, as well as other sponsors. They said, you know what? You got to change the name, man. Snyder, the times are changing. Got to change the name. And they go with the Washington football team, which actually grew on people. Like, because of the fact that it's different from every other team, people started to be like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. I kind of like Washington football team. And a lot of the fans started to rally behind it as a meme name, but they kind of started to like it. And then Washington makes this big show of, okay, we're going to have this new name, and we're going to do this mini series on YouTube called Making the Brand, and we're going to turn it into this reality show and this big thing. When at the same time, your stadium's falling apart, man. You're focusing on marketing and focus groups, and your stadium is falling apart. Luckily no one was injured when the railing collapsed and people were collapsing on Jalen Hurts. Luckily he wasn't injured. He released a note saying, hey, let's, you might want to look at fixing your railings because your stadium is trash. He didn't actually say your stadium is trash, but that was the implication in the letter. So to be focusing so much on the brand and on the name, and I'm big on branding, but you've got to have the basics. Your stadium's got to be in good shape. And I wish they would have spent half the money that they spent on all this branding stuff on renovating the stadium a bit, just to make sure that it's safe for people to go. And for most people it is, but we saw the video, it went viral. We've seen some of what's happened, and I have great respect for a lot of the people who work at FedEx Field and a lot of the people who work for Washington. I've actually toured that stadium personally. It's kind of a cool experience to go into the locker room and to see what it's like. It was very cool, but we've seen what's happening, and it's very clear. But now it's called the Washington Commanders. It was revealed yesterday, the new in a press conference with the Snyders, with Joe Theismann even. So clearly they thought they needed a little backup from one of the most respected players in Washington football history to get Joe Theismann back. And they revealed the Commanders. And here's what I think about the name. I think it's okay. But why not Red Tails? Why not Red Hogs? I understand Red Wolves was a copyright situation. That's fine. But there were some better names, and I refuse to believe that all of them were because of copyright. To go with the Commanders, it just feels so generic. So here's my prediction with the Commanders. I think, first of all, a lot of people hate the name, but some people are like, it's all right. Over time, people will get over it. Just like with Washington football team, where people actually was like, let's just keep it. Commanders will grow on people. The uniforms do look pretty cool. I will give you that. But more than anything else, win games and fix your stadium. Well, that's it for topics today. I did this on the spur of the moment. I thought, you know what? I've been wanting to do some broadcasting. I've been wanting to do some commentary for a while. So I'm gonna give this a shot. Do a half hour, do some topics, put it up on social, and see what happens. And we'll see if we continue to do this. If people like the content, then we'll keep going. This is the very, very beginning. I wouldn't even call this episode 1. I'd call this episode pilot, like beta. And I appreciate those of you who actually came by and watched. I did see people. I actually saw people. I didn't promote this. I just went live on a couple of my platforms, and I said, you know what? I'm going to talk about football for half an hour, and maybe we'll turn this into a show. And the fact is, it's pretty fun. So we'll see if this continues, but I think this was a great first kind of stab at it, and we'll keep going from there. But for everybody, my name's John D'Adamo. Thank you for those of you who stopped by. And of course, go blue. Good night, everybody.